Welcome to the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio. We've got a fast-paced hour of fishing, hunting, and conservation covering the nation and the Northwest, including 13 extra minutes of local content you'll only hear on Seattle's sports radio, KJR.
Welcome to the show. We're mixing things up again today. At the bottom of the hour, you're going to hear from Bob Loomis with Mack's Lure. He's going to talk about flashers and whether you should use a paddle flasher or a triangle flasher if you're fishing Buoy 10 at the mouth of the Columbia River. And you'll want to stick around for the end of the show because that's when we'll have our Outdoors News segment brought to you every week by your Puget Sound area Sportsman's Warehouse stores. But first, we're taking a little road trip, specifically to Potholes Reservoir in eastern Washington, where the fishing has been very good and looks to be even better in the coming month or two. Next, we're taking you to the MarDon Resort Tackle Shop. We've got Nathan LaFrance and Pete Fisher here, two guys that really know their stuff when it comes to fishing Potholes Reservoir. Pete, let's start off with you. Let's talk about crappie fishing, because I know you love crappie fishing, and you've been pulling them in lately, haven't you?
Yes, I have, John. Right now, they're kind of in a transition between coming out of the dunes and on the face of the dunes. So they're on their way out right now. That transition, you can either use a slip bobber technique with, a small plastic bait under it and or throw flicker shads or troll flicker shads. Number 5s.
All right. What color flicker shads? These are the Berkeley flicker shads, very inexpensive crankbait. It's called a 5 because it goes 5 feet deep. But what color?
They aren't super specific, but the chrome clown always works.
And as for what you like to fish under the slip bobber?
I either use a Bobby Garland, baby shad, or a DS fry.
Okay, so that's August techniques. Let's talk about September, October. Are you changing things up?
A little bit. The fish get more concentrated. They hang on habitat boxes, schooled up tighter, so that's more of a slip bobber game there.
Turning to you, Nathan, let's talk walleye, and let's talk September, October, because I know the bite really comes on then.
Yeah, September and October is honestly the best time to fish for walleye at Potholes Reservoir. Like literally, I launched the boat at 8 a.m. I could come back in at noon, and we only keep 20 walleye, but we've culled out probably 30 by then. Best thing to do is run a deep diving crankbait and target right around 10 to 12 feet of water on the face of the dunes. You'll see the line of boats out there. It's easy to find.
What kind of crankbait do you prefer?
Right now, I'm running the Berkeley Flicker Shad as well, number 7 jointed. Or also, we just got the Bill Lewis walleye lights in, and those are looking really promising.
Really? I'm not familiar with that lure at all.
Yeah, it's kind of a banana-shaped lure. New out this year. It looks really, really good. We've caught a few of them already, just catch and retrieving off the dock.
All right. Well, that is good. Let's turn our attention to bass. Back to you, Pete. When it comes to September, October, the bass are plentiful, but they're not in the dunes anymore, are they?
No, they're not. There's no water back there for them. Well, some will stay back there, but they mainly move out to the face of the dunes on sand points. Half-ounce football head with a hula grub is deadly.
And let's talk about the smallmouth in particular, off the face of O'Sullivan Dam. Now, this summer, I've been catching largemouth there primarily.
Yes, as the water drops, it's kind of strange, but you'll catch a lot of nice largemouth move up against that face of that dam.
And do they stay there in October, or do they get replaced by the salt?
Nope, they'll stay there through October into November.
I personally like to use deep diving crankbaits, but I know that's not the only way to skin a cat. What are some other ways to catch fish, either off the face of the dunes or off the dam?
Swim baits and topwater, all the way into November.
Interesting. So we're talking frogs?
Actually, more like czar spooks or poppars.
Particular colors you like during the fall?
As far as topwater, go with whites. That's number 1, pearls, that type of thing. And for swim baits, perch pattern, I'm talking soft swim baits with like 3/4 ounce heads on the face of the dam.
All right, speaking of perch, Nathan, I know there's been some big ones that have been caught recently, and the fishing for those is also very good September, isn't it?
Yeah, if you can find the school perch, you can do very, very well. And our perch here are usually right around 10 to 14 inches when they start getting up there.
There you go, folks. There's a rundown on fall fishing at Potholes Reservoir. And if you need a place, just go to MarDonResort.com. They've got cabins, they've got RV sites, they've got tent sites too. And if you need advice, just hit up Nathan and Pete at the Tackle Shop. Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, John.
That's your first local shot of the outdoors. Now let's see what's going on across the nation.
The Dalles in Oregon is your base camp for fishing fun. Reel in big salmon, tangle with steelhead, bass, and walleye, or wrestle a monster sturgeon to the boat. After the day is done, you'll find a variety of lodging options around town. Plan your fishing getaway today at explorethedalles.com. That's explorethedalles.com.
It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Kruse.
Welcome to the show. It is truly the dog days of summer right now. It's mid-August, and one way to beat the heat, of course, is to get out on the water and do some fishing. I've been doing that myself lately, going after some bass, both with deep diving plugs and some topwater frogs. It's always a lot of fun to do so, as long as you don't stay out too late, like in the middle of the day, like I did recently. Nope, definitely want to make it a early morning or late evening venture. Speaking of which, boy oh boy, those sunsets are coming a lot earlier now, aren't they? I was getting spoiled with those 9:30 sunsets, but now the sun's setting around 8 o'clock at night. And I'm starting to feel that first hint of fall coming in. Also seeing the mourning dove showing up in good numbers, which holds promise for the opener, which starts on September 1st in my state and many other states as well. This week on the show, we've got some great guests for you. One of them is Alex Robinson. He's the editor-in-chief of Outdoor Life, and he's going to tell you about a bear hunt he went on in British Columbia. And man, oh man, if you're looking to find a lot of bears, British Columbia is the place to go to. Alex will explain why in just a minute. Another guest we'll have on today is my friend Brian Lynn. He's with the Sportsman's Alliance. That is a nonprofit group that is dedicated to protecting our hunting and shooting heritage. As always, there's a lot going on from the anti-hunters and even our own federal government that's impacting hunting issues too. Brian will explain what the Sportsman's Alliance is doing to try to fight back. After that, we're taking you to Mississippi. We're talking to Brad Chappell. He is a full-time crappie guide. He is also the man behind a podcast and a YouTube channel called the Crappie Connection. And he's got some great advice about how to catch crappie during these hot August days. And boy, oh boy, he's been doing well. If you want to go crappie fishing with somebody who knows his business, Brad Chappell would probably be a very good person to go with. You'll hear more from him towards the bottom of the hour. Our final guest of the day, that would be Nathan Ratchford. He's with Ducks Unlimited, and they have compiled information from the Western Flyway, several states like California, Oregon, and Washington, as well as several states in the Great Lakes in terms of their state surveys for breeding populations. And these numbers give you a real good hint on how things are going to be in the Pacific Flyway, the Central Flyway, and the Mississippi Flyway. Nathan will help you break down the numbers that we've got from the Great Lakes states and from the West Coast. Finally, we've got some news from our friends at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. We've been telling you about that Sportsman's Surge Showdown. However, they have had to cancel that. It turned out that you just can't put something like that together in 1 month's time. So there are some openings in September now at reduced prices, and you can go ahead and use a promo code RADIO10 to get 10% off your package. So if you want to go after big coho and other species too, check out alaskasbestlodge.com. Next up, we've got Alex Robinson on the line. He's the editor-in-chief for Outdoor Life. And if you look at the current edition at outdoorlife.com, you're going to read about a bear hunting adventure he went on in British Columbia. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Really interesting article to me. And the first thing that stood out was the population numbers. What is it, 160,000 bears in British Columbia compared to 400,000 bears nationwide in America?
That's right. Yes, there is an incredible amount of bears, black bears, in that part of North America. British Columbia, last time I checked, had more than a quarter of Canada's black bear population. So, yes, very, very populated bear country up there.
Now, you were hunting up by Prince George, which is kind of in northern BC. What outfitter were you with?
So this was with Alpha Dog Outfitters.
And here's another question for you. A June bear hunt. I've never heard of that. I guess I've heard of spring bear hunts, in April and May, and I've heard of bear hunts in the fall. I just didn't know June bear hunts were a thing.
Yeah, as you go farther north, the bear hunting, it really is spring bear hunting, but it's just later, it's just later in the year. So, getting up into BC and into Alaska, you'll be hunting into June.
There's a lot of different bear hunting techniques, but I think most people are used to either a spot and stalk or hunting over bait. You didn't do either up there in BC, did you?
No. The hunting for this trip was really just driving around in a truck down these old logging roads, old kind of overgrown logging roads, and spotting bears along the way. And then when we saw a bear that seemed to be a mature boar, we'd get out of the truck and sneak closer. And yeah, it was just hours and hours and hours of driving. We would see a ton of bears every day. So that was the fun part. And then we would make a handful of stalks, to just get a really good look at a bear before we decided to shoot.
Now, unlike here in the U.S., you can actually shoot the bears on these roads, but it's not like these are public paved highways, are they?
No, these are not public paved highways. These are dirt roads out through, deep in the bush. The only other people we saw out there were either other bear hunters or loggers. There's really no reason to drive down any of these roads unless if you're doing one of those two things. They don't go anywhere. It's not like a road to town. They're just kind of roads weaving through old logged areas.
How many bears a day were you seeing?
Kind of depended on the day, but some days we'd see more than a dozen bears.
Wow.
Think about driving around somewhere, in the U.S. that has a lot of deer. Driving back roads, and maybe you'll see, if you spend a good time driving around, maybe you see a dozen, maybe 20 deer or so. That's kind of what it was like seeing all these bears. I've never seen so many bears in a single day. It was that was the really cool part.
Well, it's funny because when you were talking about, driving around looking for these bears, it reminded me about how some people go about deer hunting on opening day. They're driving the logging roads or hunting for grouse, rough grouse. They're driving the logging roads, seeing if they can find the deer on the roadway or the grouse on the roadway, and then they get out and try to get a shot at them once they're off the road. So same thing, except it was all bears here, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the bears were, this time of the year, the bears were out on these roads basically feeding on dandelions that were growing up on the shoulder of the dirt road. So they were kind of out feeding, and then the boars, this is breeding time for the bears. So the boars were running these roads looking for sap.
Looking at the photos, the size of the boars that you and your friends harvested, massive black bears.
Yes, shot really big bears, even for that area. And that's one of the benefits of hunting this way. You get to see a lot of different bears and get a really good idea of, the size of animal in the area. And you can kind of choose to be picky because you're going to see another one. If you just wait another hour or two, you're going to see another bear, almost guaranteed.
Wow. How many days did you spend bear hunting?
Let's see. I ended up shooting my bear, I believe, on the second day. And then my hunting partner shot his on the third day. And then I just tagged along and with some of the other hunters in camp. And I think we spent a total of 5 days out there hunting.
Sounds like an incredible experience. And folks, you can read all about this BC bear hunt at outdoorlife.com. That's outdoorlife.com. If you're not a subscriber already, you really should be. It's a great publication. It always has been. Quality writing, quality stories, and that includes this bear hunt that you just heard about from Alex Robinson. Alex, one last thing I'd like to talk about. You were experimenting with some new ammunition, weren't you?
On this hunt, yes. It's kind of new, old ammunition. This is Remington, which has had, I guess I would say, a revitalization, the Remington ammo side. So we're shooting the Remington Premier Long Range loads, which is they're loading a spear bullet, a spear impact bullet, which has been around for a while, but they're, loading it into Remington cartridges, kind of Remington, done in the Remington factory. And yeah, these bullets performed great. Interestingly, all our shots were at pretty close range, all well within 100 yards.
Oh, wow.
But that's actually a pretty good challenge, for a long-range bullet, too, just to see if it can kind of hold together and, expand properly without blowing to pieces at these close ranges. And, yeah, they did perfectly. That was a fun added part of the hunt for sure.
Again, sounds like a great experience, and this might tempt some people to try it themselves. Again, Alpha Dog Outfitters is the name of the outfit up in Prince George, British Columbia, so look them up. There's also plenty of other outfitters that will offer you bear hunts in British Columbia, too. Check it all out at outdoorlife.com. That's where you're going to read this great story from Alex Robinson. Alex, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks so much for having me.
When you think of Work Sharp knife and tool sharpeners, you probably think of sharpeners for the shop or the field, but Work Sharp has a whole lineup of sharpeners for the kitchen, too. We're talking about everything from easy-to-use manual and electric knife sharpeners to ceramic honing rods, whetstones, and the new rolling knife sharpener, an innovative manual sharpener that will do wonders for your cutlery. Make sure there's never a dull moment in your kitchen. Check out the entire product line and order today at WorkSharpTools.com. That's WorkSharpTools.com.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about on this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com and use the promo code RADIO10 to get 10% off.
This is the time of year to get out and cook out. So make your next meal sizzle with Camp Chef, the brand known for quality outdoor cooking. From camp stoves to cast iron, from smokers to grills, Camp Chef will change the way you cook outdoors. To eat like a king on your next adventure, go to campchef.com or visit your local sporting goods store and get cooking. Whether you're serving breakfast in the backcountry or barbecue on the back patio, savor the simplicity with Camp Chef. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners. Find out more by contacting John Kruse through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
This year, resolve to immerse yourself into the great outdoors. Whether you're learning to hunt, fish, hike, camp, paddle, or grill, or are looking to take yourself to the next level, the place to go for the gear you need is Sportsman's Warehouse. With over 145 stores around the nation, Sportsman's Warehouse is truly America's premier outfitter. Find a store near you or shop online anytime at sportsmans.com. That's sportsmans.com for Sportsman's Warehouse.
Come to MarDon Resort in Eastern Washington, not just for the fishing, but for the family fun. Go swimming in the warm summer waters at Potholes Reservoir. Play a round of putt-putt golf on our new course. Fish off the docks at our marina, or get ice cream or a meal at the beach house. Bring your golf clubs too, and golf at nearby Frenchman Hills Legacy Golf Resort. Then settle in for the night in your cabin, cottage, RV, or tent site. Book your stay today at MarDonResort.com.
Hot summer nights mean hot morning fishing for sockeye here in the Northwest, and Mack's Lure Company has got what you need to catch a limit with the Double D Dodger and two great sockeye rigs. The Double D Dodger has a unique fast, slow action and can be fished away from the boat without a side planer. The Cha-Cha Sockeye Rig and Double Whammy Sockeye Pro both feature a patented smile blade and two stout red hooks that won't let go of that salmon when it bites. Mack's Lure Company, getting you into the sockeye this summer.
Northwest Oregon's Tillamook Coast is not only the place to go for cheese and ice cream, but also for outdoors fun. Hook into a salmon in Tillamook Bay or one of the rivers flowing into it. Harvest tasty clams from our bays and pull up a crab arena or pot full of big, Dungeness crab. Visit our parks, walk the beaches, explore our forests, and enjoy our coastal communities. You are going to love it here. Plan your trip today at TillamookCoast.com. That's TillamookCoast.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We've got Brian Lynn on the line. He's with the Sportsman's Alliance. It's an organization that does a lot to protect our hunting and shooting heritage by educating us and, in some cases, through litigation. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So let's start off in Colorado. Here we go again. A cougar hunting ban this time has made the ballot.
Yeah. This is what they're doing is the predators going after predators, trying to protect predators. You know, these big national organizations, Humane Society United States. Well, this one in Colorado has the Animal Wellness Action behind it, which is Wayne Pacelli's group. Wayne used to be the CEO of the Humane Society, and he's the one backing most of this and pushing the messaging. So, protecting predators is top of their list. They did it here in Washington State years ago with mountain lions, and now they're just trying to take it everywhere else and start the whole rewilding process.
So Colorado, just a few years ago, voted to physically reintroduce wolves into their state, which was kind of crazy to me since they were naturally coming in already. And that tells me that this cougar hunting ban has a really good chance of passing as well.
Yeah, the wolf vote was actually closer than I thought it was going to be. It was about up 1 percentage point. And so it's an uphill fight. It's going to be a fight here for the next couple of months. You know, the Denver market, Colorado Springs, that's where the swing votes are going to come from. And it's hard to relay a good message to those people who don't understand hunting, fishing, trapping, and the North American model. And they don't care to.
Right.
So, you know, you have to make them care and make them understand what's important here and how this works and how their life would be impacted. And that's a tough thing to do. So it's going to be all hands on deck and working, you know, to get those messages across, whatever those messages are that resound with those people.
Let's talk about something else. The Biden administration is expanding hunting and fishing opportunities in national wildlife refuges, but there's a catch that comes with that.
Yes. Well, if you go back to 1997, the Sportsman's Alliance wrote and helped shepherd through Congress the 1997 Refuge Improvement Act. That made hunting, fishing, and trapping priority uses on the refuge system. Since then, every president, and you see it every single year, right? This is where the headline comes out that whether it's Bush, Obama, Biden, Trump, whoever, opened up 10,000, 100,000, 250,000 acres of refuge land to hunting. Well, they're opening up new units based upon the 97 Refuge Improvement Act. And every president's done it. It's a great thing. Now, the animal rights activists, Center for Biological Diversity, and a couple others, Sierra Club, have sued going back to the early 2000s. They've sued a couple of times to try to stop this, and it's been tossed out of court and, you know, no traction. Well, they sued the government based on, you know, when Biden came into office over the Trump expansions, and instead of going to court, the Biden administration decided to settle with them, even though we've won in the past and there's strong precedents for this. They decided to settle with them, and they didn't let Sportsman be in the room. They did it behind closed doors. One of the settlement points was that any future expansions for hunting and fishing would be lead-free. No lead ammunition, no lead sinkers, nothing of that. And then to phase it out gradually in other places. So it's a bit of a, you got more places to do it, but only if you're lead-free. Can't use lead shot or anything like that, which creates a big cost, extra cost to people, and as costs go up, participation drops across the board in anything.
You know, as a waterfowl and upland bird hunter, I'm used to using steel shot and have been for years. But you're right. If you're a deer hunter, there's not a whole lot of really good options that aren't really expensive. And if you're an angler, you know, lead weights is the norm, and there are alternatives, but again, they cost a lot more. And like you said, the more things cost, less people are willing to participate. Now, the Sportsman's Alliance used to be primarily a lobbying organization, but now you're actually doing litigation too. And I understand you're suing the Centers for Disease Control regarding a dog importation rule.
Yeah, you know, we've always been litigation. We've always had litigation as one of our tools. But here in the last year, we've really amped it up. We've just seen where this is going and what the other side is doing. And we need to counter them at every chance possible. So we hired 2 in-house attorneys, and we're getting much more aggressive. And the Center for Disease Control and Health and Human Services Department is a perfect example that we wouldn't have been able to do a couple of years ago just because of bandwidth and costs. But this rule is a new rule about the importation of dogs into the country. And, you know, coming from Canada, especially, you know, Washington State, Michigan, Maine, across the border, that northern border, there's a lot of exchange and a lot of travel between dog folks participating not just in hunting, but field trials and hunt tests and such like that. And there's a lot of breeders who send puppies down. There's a fantastic Brancos Beagles who is out of Canada and responsible for most of our field trial champions down here in the U.S. That would choke off entire bloodlines and really impact our hunting lines here in the U.S. And it's under the guise of stopping rabies or keeping rabies from out of the country. But Canada has been rabies-free longer than the U.S. by about 20 years. So it's kind of a funny thing. And what the rule they're using and what they're trying to base it on is a statute that they used during the COVID to enforce masks on airplanes and various other pieces that time after time after time courts have ruled is illegal and can't be done. And so that's where we're going after them, to protect our hunting dog lines and to be able to bring puppies in from rabies-free countries without the hassle, without the problems, and to protect our passions and protect our hunting dog lines here in the U.S.
Well, I love the work that your organization does. What's the website for the Sportsman's Alliance so folks can find out more?
Sportsmen's, M-E-N, sportsmensalliance.org.
That's sportsmensalliance.org. I always call it the Sportsman's Alliance, but it's Sportsmen's Alliance. So sportsmensalliance.org. Check it out and consider becoming a member and supporting this organization. I'm a member. I plan on staying a member because they're doing some great work to protect our hunting and shooting heritage. Brian, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John.
Next, I want to tell you something I really love about our friends at Henry Repeating Arms. They're a company that cares about people, and their Guns for Great Causes program is the perfect example of this. Henry Repeating Arms announced a donation of 65 custom Support for Sammy rifles, and this raised a total of $46,700, all of which is going to benefit the family of 11-year-old Sammy Bernadiskowski of Elk Ridge, Maryland. The money provides relief for the medical expenses she's incurred through treatments for multiple congenital heart defects, which includes 5 open heart surgeries. I've got to tell you, Henry Repeating Arms, they've done similar fundraisers with custom-made engraved rifles for kids battling life-threatening medical conditions for years. And it speaks so well of this company that makes all of its rugged, reliable, great-looking firearms right here in America. You can find out more about the Guns for Great Causes program and check out the lineup of lever-action rifles and other firearms from Henry Repeating Arms at henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com, and don't forget to ask for your free catalog and decals while you're there.
In today's news, I'm cooking a brisket. Let's go to Jill at my house to see how it's going.
This is your house and you brought me and the crew to check on your brisket?
That's correct, Jill. How's it looking?
This is a Camp Chef Woodwind Wi-Fi. You know you can check your cook right from your phone, right?
I didn't know that was an option, Jill. Well, never mind. But before you leave, can you feed the dog?
What? No.
When we get back, why is my check engine light on? The answer may shock me.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about on this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com and use the promo code RADIO10 to get 10% off.
Ready for more local fishing and hunting? You got it. It's the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio, KJR.
You know what time it is. It's time for another Mack's Minute, brought to you every week from Mack's Lure. And with us again is Bob Loomis. Bob, I've got a question for you.
What's that, John?
The Buoy 10 fishery is about to kick off. A lot of folks going after Chinook and coho at the mouth of the Columbia River. And I've always wondered, do you use a triangle flasher or do you use a paddle flasher when it comes to this fishery, and why?
Well, John, the reason you use a paddle flasher is because you want added movement. Yes, it does give you a lot of attraction because a large paddle flasher is going to rotate in a large circle. So you're getting that added attraction as that thing's going around. But I don't need to wind those fish up that are just coming out of the salt. I need to attract them to my bait. So a triangle flasher works extremely well down there. Don't get me wrong, the paddle works well too, but you can do just as well, if not better, on the triangle, which is just a 360-degree rotation, just attract fish to your bait. That's what you're trying to do. I don't need to get that added movement on there until I start getting up the river a little bit further, needing to really wind the fish up.
Now, Mack's Lure does make both a triangle flasher and a paddle flasher that disperse scent, which is pretty new. Just came out in the last couple of years. Tell our listeners a little bit about how that works.
Well, both of them, as you said, they're a scent dispersion product, and I can take and open them up, fill them up with any type of scent that I want. I could put in different scented tunas, I can put in herring, I can put in shrimp, I can put in anything in there to add scent, which is what salmon are more attracted to than even color.
Well, between the attractant of the flasher itself and the scent, you're going to be on your way to more salmon this year at Buoy 10 and at other places too. Look for the Mack Scent Flash Triangle Flasher and the Scent Flash Paddle Flasher at sporting goods stores near you or online at maxlure.com.
Game-changing. That's the best way to describe the new Scent Flash UV Triangle Flasher from Mack's Lure Company. This 360-degree rotational inline flasher features a scent release system attracting salmon to the lure behind it like no other flasher on the market. Soak the free scent pad with any type of oil or gel, or load up the cavity with any type of bait for fishing success beyond your wildest dreams. It's the Scent Flash UV Triangle Flasher, only from Mack's Lure Company.
A seafood bounty is waiting for you on Northwest Oregon's Tillamook coast. Catch a limit of big salmon, haul up a pot of delicious crab. Plan your visit today at tillamookcoast.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. Our next stop is Mississippi. That's where you're going to find Brad Chappell. He is a full-time crappie guide. He's also the man behind the Crappie Connection, which is both a podcast and a YouTube channel that you really need to check out. Brad, welcome to the show.
Man, I appreciate it for coming on.
Well, the reason I'm calling is I caught a video you put together a few days ago on YouTube, and it's all about catching crappie during these dog days of summer. It's August, it's hot, and a lot of folks struggle. So why are they so hard to catch for some people this time of year?
Well, they're kind of like, they're hot just like we are, and they get kind of lazy. Another factor for our lakes is there's so much shad in the lake, and they really don't have to work a lot to get food. So it's all about location and presentation this time of year.
Okay, let's talk about a few ways you go ahead and present your lures or your offerings to these crappies to get them to bite, even if they don't necessarily want to.
Well, a lot of times I'm wanting to trigger them. I want something to really utilize their instinct to attack a bait. And there's a couple different ways that I like to do that. And my top 3 setups for this month, we can kind of go through those.
Sure.
My first setup is I like pulling planer boards, and I like covering a lot of water. And that's the really key for me is when I pull planer boards is I'm wanting to cover a lot of water in a fast time frame. So I'm wanting to set out multiple poles, and I usually troll 8 poles at a time, 4 on each side of the boat. And I typically pull Bandit 300s, which is a pretty good size crankbait, and it kind of matches the hatch to say. Our shad have grown up and they're bigger size, so I want to bring them over the top of brush piles and stumps on ledges. Ledges are really key for me this time of year too, but I'm wanting to pull them over brush piles and ledges and really manipulate their sense to attack bait. So bringing them over brush piles, and their instinct is just they see this bait come and they hear it and they dart up and attack it real quick. So that's why I think, pulling crankbaits with planer boards is really effective for me, the hatch and going for them like that.
Gotcha. So are you doing this to find the schools of crappie and then changing to like a vertical jigging presentation once you do find those schools?
Well, I typically don't find them like open water schools, but I'm finding them on brush and things like that. And if I'm pulling planer boards, I've got usually a pretty set out routine that I'm wanting to go. And our water's fairly clear. We don't have a lot of rain this time of year, so the water's fairly clear for us. And I'm talking Mississippi, 3 or 4 foot. But these fish get fairly boat spooked. So I'm wanting to get the planer boards away from the boat and actually just keep my planer boards running over those stumps and brush piles that I've marked, and just trying to, get away from the boat and pull the baits directly over the top of them still. What's another method you like to use during this time of year? Man, I'll tell you what, this is a method. It come about, I guess, live sonar is real big. And I like to sit back away from the brush piles that I've already found them on and they're located. And I like casting to them. And typically I'm using a 7.5 foot rod, light pound test, 4 or 6 pound test is usually what I utilize. And I'm using Bobby Garland itty bits. Swimmers and slab hunters are the 2 names of the bait. And I start off by tying a 1/16 ounce. And then below it, about 10 or 12 inches, I tie a really small jig head, like a 1/64 or a 1/48. And I'm using these itty bit jig bodies. And when I talk about itty bit, I mean they're an inch and a quarter baits, real small profiles. And they're kind of, I'm getting right into the brush piles with them. I cast them out, stay away from the brush piles itself. And I'm talking 25 to 40 feet away from them. Cast it out to them and let it drop down to them. And if you can let the bait drop directly on top of them, and as soon as it gets right about where they're at, start retrieving up away from them, that's what's triggering them. That's what makes them come up and actually bite them. And what's really cool about it, too, using live sonar is a lot of times, especially with small baits, you really won't even feel the bite. You'll see the bite. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll see the line just twitch a little bit, but a lot of times with live sonar, I'll actually see the bite on the screen and then set the hook just by actually seeing the bite. But it's fantastic this time of year to do that. Something else I saw in your YouTube video is you have a little spinner above your jig. Yep. Go ahead and tell our listeners about this. Well, this is, a buddy of mine, Kevin Rogers. He was from Missouri, fished a lot of crappie tournaments for 20-plus years, and he kind of told me this secret strategy, I guess, I'm going to say 8 or 10 years ago. And we'll take a jig head, like a 160, probably a 1/16 typically is what I'm using, tie it on your line, and then I'll put a rubber bobber stop directly above the knot. Mm-hmm. And then I'll take a what we call slab ticklers, and they're made by Bobby Garland Baits, and just put it directly through the line. And all it is a willow leaf, 1-inch blade, and have it free floating on the line. And then I'll have another rubber bobber stop 3 or 4 foot above that. So whenever I toss the jig to them, of course, the 1/64 is going to go down fast. It's going to get down to where the crappie are located. But the blade, as it's coming down the line itself, it's just going to kind of flutter down the line just from the weight of the blade itself. So it falls extremely slow. And you can actually manipulate it a little bit by having it by the cup facing down, it's going to fall slower, or you can have the cup of the blade up and it's going to fall a little bit faster. So I kind of let the crappie tell me which way they want it, but just having that blade flutter down is another way to trigger their instinct to see the bait, and actually when it stops, that blade stops right above them is what typically when you're going to have that fish come up and actually hit it. But it's a really neat little technique to utilize too, especially on pressured fish. You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Brad Chappell. He's the man behind the Crappie Connection. It's a channel you really should check out on YouTube. He also has a podcast as well called the Crappie Connection. Tell me a little bit about your home lake in Mississippi. Yeah, Ross Barnett Reservoir. It was made back in the 1950s as a water source for the city of Jackson. It's about 34,000 acres, and on the north head waters of it is a river system that feeds into the lake. We have black crappie and white crappie. They get up as big as 3 pounds, so we have some really big crappie. And I would say our probably average keeper is 1.5 pounds to 1.75 pounds. Oh, my gosh. And They just like this hot summertime, we're catching them. I think today we had around 50 that we kept. So, they're biting really good, even in this heat.
Wow. Well, Ross Barnett Reservoir is known as one of the best crappie lakes in the entire United States.
It's getting there more and more every day, and there's good reason behind it.
If folks want to book a trip with you, how do they do it?
Man, the easiest way is just send me an email or call me up. My email is bchappell, CHAPPELL 268@gmail.com. Just give me a call, 601-317-6681.
You can also contact him through his YouTube channel at the Crappie Connection. Again, the email again is bchappell268@gmail.com. That's a pretty easy one to remember, bchappell268@gmail.com. And check out the Crappie Connection on YouTube. Check out the Crappie Connection as a podcast and become a better crappie angler. And if you get a chance to go fishing with Brad, I guarantee you're going to learn a whole lot of tricks if you do. Brad, thank you so much for sharing all this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Do you love to fish? Do you love to eat fish? Well, if you do, you know how important it is to have something to keep things sharp. Now, in the boat, it might be something to keep your hook sharp, like maybe the pocket knife sharpener from Work Sharp, which also works just fine along with the guided field sharpener for keeping fillet knives sharp. So when it comes to cleaning those fish you catch for the day, you can get that done in a hurry. And let's not forget, back at the house, when you're preparing those fish for a meal, that's when you want to have a kitchen knife sharpener, and there's several electric ones available. You can find them all at worksharptools.com, which lists all sorts of both manual and electric sharpeners you can use in the kitchen, in the shop, or in the field. Sharp hooks and sharp knives make for a happy day on the water, so get your sharpener today at worksharptools.com or look for these products at quality sporting goods stores and hardware stores near you.
Come explore the Dalles in Oregon for outdoors fun. Hike amongst the wildflowers, bike our riverfront trail, or visit the Gorge Discovery Center where you can enjoy a live raptor display, or even check out our National Neon Sign Museum. But don't forget the fishing. We've got salmon, steelhead, bass, walleye, and monster-sized sturgeon waiting just for you. When the day is done, tell those tall tales at one of our wineries, breweries, or restaurants and plan your next adventure. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
I'm Anthony Imperato, president of Henry Repeating Arms. Patriotic Americans are looking to protect and provide for their families, now more than ever. Henry has over 200 rifles and shotguns to choose from, made in America or not made at all, and backed by a lifetime guarantee. Go to henryusa.com and order our free catalog, decals, and a list of dealers in your area. That's henryusa.com. Thank you, and God bless America.
John Kruse here, looking to improve your bottom line as a business that caters to outdoors enthusiasts. You can do so for a very cost-effective price by advertising on America Outdoors Radio. I will tailor a marketing campaign for you, reaching hundreds of thousands of listeners every weekend, tuning into our show on 135 stations in 33 states. We've got a sponsor opening right now, so contact me through my website at americaoutdoorsradio.com, and let's talk about helping you.
This year, resolve to immerse yourself into the great outdoors. Whether you're learning to hunt, fish, hike, camp, paddle, or grill, or are looking to take yourself to the next level, the place to go for the gear you need is Sportsman's Warehouse. With over 145 stores around the nation, Sportsman's Warehouse is truly America's premier outfitter. Find a store near you or shop online anytime at sportsmans.com. That's sportsmans.com for Sportsman's Warehouse.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to healthcare, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We've got some early numbers in when it comes to duck breeding populations in the Pacific Flyway and also in the Great Lakes region. With us here to tell you more about them and what they mean for your duck hunting season is Nathan Ratchford. He's the Conservation Communications Coordinator for Ducks Unlimited. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
Pretty interesting numbers here, and there's some good news, that there's a lot of bad news, especially when it comes to the Pacific Flyway. The numbers out of Washington and California in particular, not very good when it comes to the breeding population.
Yeah, numbers were down this year, John. You know, it's different reasons for different states. California, a lot of that was due to some flooding that delayed rice planting in the Sacramento Valley in particular. A lot of growers ended up taking insurance instead of planting, which definitely contributed to a lack of habitat available for locally breeding ducks. You know, all this is from our scientists at Ducks Unlimited, you know, who are spread out across the country to keep a good eye on what's going on in their particular region. But yeah, some mixed results out of the flyway this year.
25% decrease in California, 22% decrease in Washington. And one of the main reasons is the long-term drought that we're having in the Columbia Basin, which is kind of the duck factory for eastern Washington. And I live in the basin, and I can attest a lot of the areas that I have hunted over the years have completely dried up. And that's not good for the ducks. They need water if they're going to go ahead and breed.
Yeah. Washington in particular, you know, I'm in Memphis, so it's all just through the grapevine on these things. But yeah, Washington, especially as you noted in that Columbia Basin, which is very important, continues to experience long-term drought, and that definitely reflects in the numbers that we see this year. You know, it's a good reminder, though, that these, you know, drought conditions have long-term positive effects on the landscapes, and we still need available habitat for when the rain returns. There's a big difference between a drain wetland, right? So making sure that we have habitat available for when precipitation returns to those landscapes, that we could see a good rebound for duck population numbers.
The one bright spot in the Pacific Flyway is the beaver state of Oregon. Now, their total breeding duck population increased by a whopping 53%. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you know, after speaking with some of the state biologists there, they believe that some of the drivers of that increase were survey ducks, boreal breeding species, particularly northern shovelers and gadwall, that may have still been moving through the landscape. Unfortunately, there's no way to, you know, determine exactly, you know, how much of that counts for that rise in the total population number, but there was definitely larger groups observed during that state surveys. So, yeah, but no matter what, definitely generally favorable wetland conditions as well. Some good winter precipitation in there, particularly in eastern Oregon. You know, definitely some minimal rainfall in April, which definitely led to a lack of sheet water, but overall, looking good.
Well, the world needs more spoonbills, that's for sure. At least, well, maybe not. I guess I'll ask. You know,
Are you like Mr. Hollywood?
Yeah, there's a differing opinion on the northern shoveler in terms of its table fare. I've had people swear that it's great. I've eaten them myself, and it feels like I'm eating mud.
Yeah, I guess it's all in, you know, everyone's got their own preferences. But yeah, I'd certainly take a mallard over a spoonbill.
You and me both. All right, let's head to the Great Lakes. Wisconsin comparable to last year. Minnesota decreased by 10%. What's going on there?
Yeah, Minnesota, you know, according to the state report, and earlier the normal ice out throughout the state and dry conditions persisted. And, you know, you see that reflected in the survey time and area. However, they definitely did experience some extensive rains immediately after some of these surveys were conducted, and that should fare well for some good production locally. But yeah, you know, it's just it's all timing with these surveys, as you know, but fortunately, we hunters kind of count on that fall flight, which is all-around production, so things do look a bit more positive with that abundant rain arriving on that landscape, which will spread out ducks, good for brood survival, and makes much more difficult for predators to get to those broods.
You have to help me understand the results for Michigan. Now, I understand 2023 was a bad year for brooding populations of ducks, but this year there's a 203% increase from last year. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, the Great Lakes, particularly in Michigan, were definitely a bright spot. Wetland conditions range from fair to excellent across Michigan. The statewide abundance for wetlands was estimated definitely a bit up as well. You know, the state biologists did comment that they may have been seeing some of those migrating ducks as well. It's kind of similar to what happened in Oregon and Washington, but specifically for mallards. They did observe some larger groups of mallards. That's in the report as well, which are over 20 birds. So some migrators mixed in there, but overall definitely a significant rebound from a record low last year in 2023. So Michigan was definitely some great news out of the Great Lakes.
Now, these results are important because decision makers at the state level use adaptive harvest management to figure out what limits are going to be for the fall season. So why don't you explain a little bit more about adaptive harvest management?
Yeah, absolutely. So adaptive harvest management was in 1995. And what happens here with these state surveys is, although they're not factored into the traditional survey area, the May survey, the BPOP, they do factor in, as you mentioned, to those harvest management decisions for the following year. So it won't be for this year, but it'll influence decisions around the 2025-2026 season. And for the Great Lakes area, the key there is the mid-continent mallards. So AHM protocols for the three westernmost flyways are all informed by population dynamics and the status of two key mallard stocks. So this is excluding the Atlantic flyway, right? So we're talking about Mississippi, Central, and Pacific. And for the Central and Mississippi flyways, that's all around mid-continent mallard. So these state surveys in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the data collected through those observations are combined with data from the traditional survey area, which is conducted by Fish and Wildlife Service and its partners in that well-known May survey.
Right.
And then they make a decision on what is the recommendation framework for states to follow for the next year around how many mallards you could shoot and so on, right? So it's a recommendation. The states have to, at a bare minimum, be that, they have to follow their guidelines, but they could always be more restrictive if they deem necessary. So that's kind of why we put the emphasis on recommendations. But however, they can't be any more liberal than what they recommend. For the mid-continent mallards out of the Great Lakes and the Pacific Flyway, these results out of California, Washington, Oregon are also combined with the traditional survey, specifically out of the Northwest area of that traditional survey area. So Alaska and British Columbia as well is factored into these decisions. They also conduct their own independent survey, and that informs the Western Mallard AHM framework. So that will determine how many mallards that Pacific flyway hunters can harvest the following year.
Great information to have, and thanks for explaining it all to us today. Folks, if you want to find out more about Ducks Unlimited, the great work that they do in terms of preserving our habitat and helping our duck populations, just go to their website. It's very simple, ducks.org. That's ducks.org. Nathan, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Heading north to Alaska into Sportsman's Cove Lodge, we've been telling you about the Sportsman Surge Showdown, that tournament where somebody was going to be coming home with $50,000 and a total of $100,000 prize package. Well, turns out they've had to cancel that. It was just too much to put together in a month's time, and it wasn't generating enough entries to justify the cash payout. So better luck next year. I think that with a bigger run-up and more promotion, it's going to be wonderful next year when they put on something like this. But it's not happening in September. So the bright side is they've got openings in mid-September, and they've got a couple promos for you to use. One of them is our promo code. Just use Radio10. That's Radio10. And if you go to alaskasbestlodge.com, that's the website for Sportsman's Cove Lodge, you'll get 10% off when you use that promo. Another promo you could use is if you fill up the boat, and each boat takes 6 anglers. You bring 5 buddies with you, and you get to fish for free. Or everybody gets a certain percentage off, however you want to do that. The person to contact for either one is Jenny Neary. She is the sales director at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Again, just go to alaskasbestlodge.com and go to the reservations page, give them a call, and Jenny will be happy to help you out. The promo code, again, is Radio10 for 10% off. And again, if you can bring 5 buddies with you, you get to fish for free. Just ask for that promotion too. That's the bring 5, get 1 free. And by the way, the fishing at Sportsman's Cove Lodge in September, as we told you a couple of months ago, spectacular for big coho salmon. And you may even get a chance to win that Calm Waters Derby. If you get the biggest coho of the season, that'll get you a free trip back to the lodge next year. On that note, it's time to go, but here's hoping you are blessed in the days ahead, that you're healthy, and that you're enjoying summer, whether you're on the water, in the woods, or in the mountains. After all, it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.
Sportsman's Warehouse is America's premier outfitter, full of the gear you need to succeed this hunting season. Firearms, ammo, archery equipment, decoys, clothing, boots, and more. Find a location near you or shop online today at sportsmans.com. Don't leave yet. We've got one more local shot of fishing and hunting to wrap up the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio.
I'm glad you stuck around for the end of the show because, as promised, it's time for your Outdoors News segment, brought to you every week by your Puget Sound area Sportsman's Warehouse stores in Everett, Silverdale, Sequim, Puyallup, and Federal Way. And they've got some good sales going on right now, but you're not going to want to miss the Labor Day sale. That is always a big one at Sportsman's Warehouse, so make plans that week before Labor Day of really scoring some great deals. No matter what you need for the outdoors, you'll find it at Sportsman's Warehouse. We start off our news with good news for people who like to crab in Puget Sound. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife is going to add 2 additional days. That would be August 27th and 28th in just about all of the open marine areas, with the exception of Marine Area 10 and 11. At Buoy 10, the bite is definitely on for both Chinook and coho salmon. But some days are better than others, and as I've learned from my friend Jason Brooks, who wrote an article about this fishery, the tides have a lot to do with it. For example, August 11th, 139 anglers and 50 boats caught 26 Chinook and 7 coho, total of 33 fish there. But on August 3rd, 70 anglers kept 2 Chinook and 52 coho. The fishing, especially for the coho, should only get better as the month progresses, so if you have plans on fishing the famed Buoy 10 fishery, might want to get down there sooner than later. If you're after steelhead or Chinook salmon in other places besides Buoy 10, consider the Cowlitz River above the I-5 Bridge. Last week, 14 bank anglers released 2 steelhead, and 42 anglers and 12 boats kept 13 Chinook and 2 steelhead, and released a few more fish, including a sockeye salmon of all things. Meanwhile, things picked up this past week at Drano Lake, where 6 bank anglers released 5 steelhead, and 48 boatloads of anglers kept 26 Chinook, released 2 Chinook, 35 steelhead, and a stray sockeye as well. Last but not least, congratulations are in order to Steve Daisy. He has been named the Hunter Education Volunteer Coordinator of the Year by the International Hunter Education Association. Steve does his hunter education in conjunction with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Thank you, Steve, for helping a whole lot of new hunters get in the field. And with that, you are now in the know about what's hot this week in the Pacific Northwest.
That's all for this week, but don't worry. We'll do it all again next Saturday morning from 7 to 8, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio, KJR.